Okay, hi again. So I thought it would be very useful for us to go through the expectations for your final draft of the personal essay. So we have going to be workshopping your essays, looking at drafts. You're going to be doing exercises in your writing notebooks, which you've started to do already. And we are going to work little by little towards that final draft of the personal essay. And one thing that I can't stress enough in terms of being a writer is drafting. In fact, there's a saying, all good writing is actually rewriting. And that is, I think, what you're experiencing in this class. But in looking ahead to that final draft, which is not due until week 7, so not to be concerned about it now, but just to give you a sense of what the expectation is going to be as you proceed further. Okay, so the personal essay assignment is going to be a well-revised version of your personal essay. It should be accompanied by the process narrative, and I know that I discussed in my intro a little bit about the process narrative, but what is the process narrative? So the process narrative is a reflective essay that gives both me and, more importantly, you, a good understanding of yourself as a writer, of your process, of how you take commentary and critique and use that as you're revising your work. So one thing that you should, I think, be aware of is that you are never required to take any comments that either I or your peers give you. You need to decide what works and what doesn't. And if something just doesn't sound right to you, then there's no reason that you have to incorporate that into your final piece. However, you do, and this is where the tricky part comes, you do have to explain why you decided not to use the critique that was given you. But on the other hand, even if you do decide to take the critique, I ask that you explain why. And one of the mistakes I think students often make with this process narrative is that they just quickly say, oh, I liked everything that everybody said and it was important and helpful to me. That's not explaining why, right? That's not digging into, what specifically, and you can even just take one or two examples. It could be that the setting originally wasn't very fleshed out. Why is it important to flesh out the setting in this particular essay? How did the setting lend to your deeper understanding or the reader's deeper understanding of the character in your essay? Or maybe it was what many people struggle with is that global aspect. How is this very personal essay? How did you incorporate research into it? How did you make it a more global, appeal to a more global audience? Those are the things to be thinking about and to really engage with the questions. So you want to be as specific as possible. And you definitely, want to quote from the critique that you got. So if I gave you critique, quote from it, your peers as well. And don't, it's funny, sometimes I find that students, just completely disregard what I've said and only talk about their peers' critiques. I want you to talk about your peers' critiques. I also want you to talk about mine. There are also students who will disregard what their peers have said and only talk about mine. I want to hear about both, okay? So this is a workshop class. You're really addressing both. Now, the other piece, and this is, I think, even the more challenging part of this process narrative, is to think about a model writer that you've read. So you're selecting an essay from our text, and it could be from any of our texts that showcases mastery of a technique with which you yourself are struggling. So perhaps, again, back to setting, maybe you've had a hard time, understanding how to create good setting. And you see that, the Philip Lopate essay is a really good example of setting. Okay, so explain how, why, what is it about that essay? How is Lopate using setting to further our understanding of what's at stake in the essay or of the characters in the essay? All right, so you want to be, again, as specific as possible. You want to quote from the text. You want to show that you've really thought about it and engaged with those aspects of craft that we're covering in this class. And finally, the entire piece is going to be recorded. So you're going to be recording both the personal essay as well as that process narrative. All right, so why am I telling you all this so early on in the semester? Is because I think that if you are aware of what's coming down the pike, of where we're going with all this, you'll be heightened, your attention will be a bit heightened in these workshops. You're going to be taking the critique, really thinking about it. This is the way in which I want you to think about the critique, in which I want you to go back into revising your piece. The sorts of questions you're going to be, asking yourself, why did I reject this? Like, why is it not feeling right to me? And it has to go beyond just, I don't feel like doing it, right? Why does it not work in this piece, or why does it work in this piece? All right. So again, if there are any questions at all, please let me know. And I won't need to make a video for all three of these, but for memoir, we'll have the same process. And for the literary profile, same process, always with that process narrative. And remember, you are recording both of those. All right. See you next time, I guess.